Hey everyone, just want to stop by real quick for this podcast starts and say you should like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow me on all my social medias at John D. Clouser, literally the same name as the name they subscribe to on this YouTube channel. So enjoy this clip, and I'll see you guys on the other side.
Spider-Man, you. Oh! Bro.
That was like the rush.
Welcome to the John Show with your host, John Doogie Clouser.
All right. What's going on, everyone? How are you? So I accidentally kicked out right before the start of this podcast. I accidentally stepped on the cord that connects I have this huge, probably like 13-inch black cord that connects to my earphones. It's like just an extender, and I accidentally kicked it out of the inbox. So I wasn't like, I'm like, why can't I hear anything? And I looked down, I'm like, oh, it's because it's unplugged. Then my clapper finally broke again. Well, it didn't finally break. It's broken for like the fifth time, and it's like a screw thing. And like, of course, over time, it just slowly unscrews itself. So it's great. It's awesome. So we're here on a new episode 126 of my show, the Juan Solo Show. I'm your host, John D. Clouser. Juan D. Clouser, whichever one you like to prefer, which doesn't really matter. Does it matter? So, what's going on? What's up? So, I had a whole bunch, not a whole bunch of stuff to talk about this week. Pretty interesting, easy week going on so far. This week's actually rather relaxed compared to most other weeks prior. I've had a lot of different projects going on this week. Like, I don't have any real deadlines. I guess I have a deadline coming up closer to the middle of next week, but this weekend is kind of like kind of chill, just kind of do my final thing. I really do feel, if we're talking about my deadlines real quick, I have a story that's been done. It's been done for like 2 months. Haven't touched it for 2 months. And I just pulled it out yesterday or 2 days ago just to kind of look over at it, just to see what it is. And I'm like, what is the structure? And I fucked everything up. And now all I've been thinking about is like, I think I totally fucked up the structure. I liked how the old structure was. And granted, like, I have backup copies of the old structure, but I'm just like, John, why did you do all this? Because like, it was like 2 a.m. and I was just sitting there just like fucking with it. And I don't know, I'm like, what did you do? Like, it's like, dude, I wasn't like drunk or baked or anything. I was just like, just being a fucking moron. I was like, I think it was just because I was half asleep, and I'm just sitting there just like, backspace, delete this. And I'm like, I was looking at the 2 different copies, and I'm like, how am I missing 6 words with this one versus this one? And like, there shouldn't be anything other than like the format changes. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And so I need to go back and look at that. And I'm just like, I've been just thinking, oh, John, why did you do that? It was done. It was perfect. It was fine exactly the way it was. Like, it had been proofread. It had been spell checked. It has been everything. It was all good to go. It was literally just good. All I had to do is enter my submission fee and then submit the story, and then I'm done. And then that's it. And I'm like, you fucking moron. Now that one. Now, guys, you know how I like the other story? Was it John's waterproof boots? Well, what's so funny is like I keep refreshing my email, hoping that like I might hear back from this company, that the place that I submitted my story to. I'm like, John, this story's not that good. It's not that good. So like, you can't expect to have won anything with this story. Like, the story's not good. Like, you're not even getting an honorable mention on this. I've just come to the conclusion I'm just not gonna. It's just like, John, it's just not that good of a fucking story. But now this other one that I worked on, I think it's really good. It's like John's like waterproof boots. Semi has like some like Latin spice into it, but like, I really realized, like, I don't know what I've been on a kick lately that all my stories have like these heavy Latin influences. But I guess it's just like with anything, with any kind of person who does creativity, they go into different realms of things. So I guess it's just right now I'm just like in this like, yeah, Latin theme. For me, it's all right. It's funny because I'm just like, why are you talking about all this? Like, this is weird that like somehow this has been pinned up inside you. And now you're just like choosing to start talking about all of it. Maybe because it's like, maybe I'm trying to do like a little bit of the zeitgeist, trying to get maybe like be different. Like I'm assuming that there's going to be a lot of white people applying for these positions, these in these competition as well. So I'm like I want to be my name looks white, but I'm like who's he talking about? It's like, and his character's Juanito. Like, it's like, so what is this? Who is this kid? Who is this guy? Who's this John D. Clauser guy? Like, and then they meet me, because most of the time what happens is like when these companies or like anybody's ever talked to me, they're like, oh, we weren't expecting you. It's always the same thing with these like, oh, we weren't. Oh, okay. Because like the thing is like, if I do, this might be a little condescending, but you have to look at it like this, because and like when you're trying to be in the entertainment world, you have to look at like what you provide, what you come with. They look at your numbers, your Instagram, and all this stuff. And so what they can provide with me is like you can get, at least this is how I look at it. And maybe this is fucked up to be saying, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I got time. I have to kill time. But like I look Caucasian somewhat, but then you know me, then you can hear what I talk about. I'll talk about like Latin shit, black people shit, kind of, like in terms of respectfulness, but like Afro-Latino stuff, like Latin stuff. I'll talk about Egyptian shit. I'll fucking talk about it all the time. And you're like, what the fuck? Why is this white guy? But then you like look into me, who I am, and like, oh, okay, this guy isn't even born here. He wasn't even born in the States, so he has credibility to be saying some of the shit that he's saying. So that's the aspect of things that I look at it. Like I'm just like, okay, well, like I come at it a slightly different angle than I would assume a lot of people do. And so I'm hoping that it's the same thing with my writing. And it's fun. Like, I don't know, for me, it's like, it's cool to talk about Ocean Bay, this place in Puerto Cortez, Honduras. It's cool as fuck to talk about that. So I'm like, why not talk about it? Bring it up. Talk about like Afro-Latino women that I've dated in the past. And like them being from like Victoria Park, Los Angeles, which is like a heavy, black and Latino area. So just using those things, like, and like it's, I don't know, I'm thinking that using like those little things will slightly separate my stories versus someone else's story, and it's just like, oh, like look what he can do. He can provide you like his like kind of like a white view because he got adopted by white people. But he's also brown, and he has like brown roots. And that's kind of how I look at it. I'm like, oh, I'm like this weird hybrid thing. And it's like, you just, we all have tools. This is my tool, right? Right? But it was so funny. Like, I was really actually a little bit more excited to talk about this earlier before looking it up. But this is something that you guys might want to look up too. So, how I talk about every week how I do a bunch of Googling. I do a lot of searching. I do a lot of stuff like that just because reading, you don't have to read books to like read. It's good to do that, but that's only if you want to understand like strong like literature, like reading, literature structure and all that stuff. But you can easily just read stories. You can read the comics. You can read sports. You can read anything. So little thing that one of the weird things, because I heard that there's a conspiracy theory that in the Grand Canyon, this is so cool. Yeah, oh, like Grand Canyon. What is it? Aliens? Kinda. What it is ancient Egypt. Apparently, there's this guy named John. Let me look here. What did it say? It said John. John Powell. He was an explorer. He was like the first guy who explored the Grand Canyon. Explored the Grand Canyon, and apparently him and his men, but this is how funny it says, he and his men mostly discovered remains of previous civilizations, including well-worn path ruins, hieroglyphics, and some pottery fragments, which in turn, like, they were all like, weren't most civilizations back in the day, weren't most of them using hieroglyphics because they just didn't have words? So you use pictures because that makes the most sense. Like, why would you not just draw something that you see, something you saw, this animal, draw on the wall? That makes sense to me versus Ooga Booga, and that be a word for something. I'm sure somehow down the line that's going to be fucking clipped out of something. But yeah, and so apparently it's a ISIS temple. You can easily just Google that. It's in the Grand Canyon, Arizona, and apparently Arizona has like 9. And I also Googled this too. Like they have like 9 pyramids, but some of them are just buildings that were like upside down pyramids. It was just it's literally like a concrete building, or it's like a building, like a modern day building, and they built a pyramid, but they flipped it upside down. So the wide part's on top. It's just not. You're like, okay, that's cool. All right. So that's a thing. That's a thing. Yeah, it's just like so the conspiracy. Oh, sorry, I didn't tell you about the conspiracy theory. So the conspiracy theory is that apparently that there's this area called the ISIS temple, and it's supposed to be a pyramid that was built before the whole the whole Grand Canyon was made. So imagine that like a temple was built, so like a square thing was built, and then at the bottom now there's all the Grand Canyon, all that stuff going on below it. Well, the theory is like before all that stuff, there used to be just a river, and so they think the ancient Egypt. Right. All right. I think we're doing this podcast. Let me just lower this monitor. Okay. Well, what's up, guys? How are you? So we're here on a new. I guess we're back because technically I've been talking. I've been doing a podcast, but you might be wondering, John, why? Why? What happened? Hey, why did it cut to black for a second? And now why are you in the same outfit, a different microphone? Well, the reasoning behind this is because when I was recording my first podcast, this is right now, it is Sunday at 12:22 in the afternoon. When I was doing the podcast, it cut out. I don't know what to tell you guys. I just don't know what to tell you. We got about 11 and a half minutes into it, and then it just cut out. I don't have a really good. I'm just using the onboard microphone that is on the, the camera, and yeah, and so that was the problem, and so the audio was shitty, and so I'm like, well, what I could do is I could just easily just leave the audio in that I'm on the camera, so it's gonna go for good audio for about 12 minutes, and then it's gonna cut out, and then the last. What would you say, about 60%, 55% of the rest of the podcast would be absolutely horrible. So I'm like, well, I could do that, or what I could do is I could just reshoot a podcast. And I'm just like, am I focused? Am I not in focus? So I might not be in focus. This whole thing is like a fluffle. So you also might be wondering, John, why are you using a different microphone? Well, the reason why is because I thought... I have this little Zoom recorder right here, and I have it, and I've had it for years, and I've never used it because I thought it was broken, because on the top part there's these 2 microphones, and they cross, and since they were broken, I just assumed the whole thing was fucked, even though you can plug a microphone into the bottom part of it, and it's fine, and it works. And then I'm like, okay, great, perfect, great. And I wasn't even thinking. And so I had a 2 gig. It's really hot in this. It's really hot down here because it's going to be like 120 degrees today in Missouri. And so when I was then this morning, I'm like, okay, I got up. I got everything ready, put all the lights up, got the microphone ready. And I was like, okay, you should just put like 120 and like 8 gig little SIM card into it. It's quite overkill. There's no reason for you to have that big of a storage system. But the reason why you have that big of a storage system is because it allows you to be able to have a large amount of stuff to storage. You can store. Is this story making any sense? I'm just like, this microphone, I'm just like listening to it, I'm like, it is slightly distorted. So yeah, this might be the only time I ever use this microphone. This might be the last time I use this microphone. And then I'm like, why am I sweating so much? But I'm like, let's just do an extra 20 minutes. And this has been absolutely horrible. This has been a horrific 4 minutes of talking. Literally, I looked up, I'm like, well, how long have I done? 4 minutes? Okay. All right. 4 minutes? Okay. Okay, I got 16 minutes left. No joke, guys. It is so hot in here. And I'm like, why is it so hot in here now? I'm like, is it because I opened the windows? Not opened the windows, but I just allowed the light to come in. So I'm like, oh, let's use some natural light too. And well, anyway, so when I was recording this, I'm like, why is this not? And I'm like, okay, am I even recording? That's the thing. How funny it would be if I do this for 15 minutes. I realize I'm not even recording. And so what happened was so I had a 2 gig SIM card into the Zoom recorder. Well, that was working, but I'm afraid I didn't even check it to see how much time I would even have on it. But I'm like, I need to talk for 20 minutes continuous straight. I'm like, I don't think that's going to be enough space. And so I just tried to put a big one in, see if that worked. Anyway, so I had to go through like 20 different little SIM cards because what it does is you put it in and then it has to read everything. So it has to everything has to just line up perfectly. And if they don't line up perfectly, it becomes a card error. And so average 3 minutes per card that you have to read. And it was just continuously card error. So I finally found one that worked. I don't really want to buy a new one. I'm like, oh my God. And the thing is, then I looked at it, and it's 12 hours and 36 minutes and 12 seconds worth of video recording. So it is what it is. So, yeah, that's what we're doing. All that long-winded 5-minute speech, just basically I could have said it in 30 seconds, but then what would I be doing for the rest of the time? Yeah, okay, so we're here. It is incredibly hot down in this. You know what they say? If it's hot in the kitchen, the oven's probably on. I don't even know where I was at. Where were we talking? I think we were talking about something. I guess we can just continue about random things. Fucking A, dude. Does anyone else hate fucking raccoons? So, every job I ever work, there's always a place where you throw out your trash, your garbage. And every place always has a large infestation of fucking raccoons. I can't stand raccoons. I'm super scared of raccoons in the sense of the fact they might have fucking rabies. Do you want to get rabies? I don't want to get rabies. And so if you get rabies, guess what you have to do? You have to get a fucking shot. And if you don't get a shot, you die. Rabies is insane. If you've never you should Google watching someone getting rabies and then dying from it. It is the most insane thing because you get really thirsty, you foam at the mouth, and then you just actually let's Google this. How do you die from rabies? The cause of death of rabies is a blockage of airway, seizures, exhaustion, and widespread paralysis. And 20% of people with rabies begin with tingling or paralysis in the limbs. The limb that was bitten, the paralysis then moves through the body. How long does it take until rabies kills a person? Symptoms eventually process delirium, coma. Death usually occurs between 2 to 10 days after first symptoms. It's kind of a large number, isn't it? That's kind of that's like that statement was the equivalent of like when the cable company's like, well, we're going to come on Thursday between 6:47 and maybe, January 1st of 2027. It's like just to make sure. And it's like I get that and I understand why people do that or why organizations do stuff like that. And it's because they have to, they can't say their HQ is someplace, you're someplace, you could be in the bumfuck other place aside the state or city. And so they have to give themselves like some little bit of a breathing room, but it's never good. It's never. What is this podcast do? What am I doing on this show? I'm drinking coffee with what is it? Snickers with Snickers creamer in it. So yeah, I'm like, okay, John. I woke up this morning. I'm like, hey, you need to get this podcast done. Once you get this done, you can go mow the yard. Once you mow the yard, you can get your 300 words in for the day. And once you get 300 words in the day, then you can go and you can do your laundry. Then once you get your laundry done, what you can do is you can go back and you can do another 300 fucking words. And then you're like, what you do is then you put your laundry in the dryer. And then once you do that, you can go and you try to write another 300 fucking words. It's so good. If my days off, Sunday is like my Sunday fun day. So it's a day where I try to get at least like 1,000 words. Granted, like when you do 1,000 words in a day, your brain becomes mush by the end of the day. And it is just horrific, the words and the sentences that you're writing out to get when you're at like 987 words. You're like, okay, I'm almost fucking there. I'm almost there. But it's almost the same thing with this. So, like, I'm doing this in the morning. This is such a weird time. So, I was listening to this I got a podcast. I was listening to this podcast, and they had the psychologist on, and he was talking about, like, he does a lot of brain growth, understanding, like, studies of brain growth and things like sleeping and, creativity. And he says that there's this level of when you're at nighttime. So about like 8:30 to 9, what happens is your serotonin level starts increasing because your body's getting ready to go to sleep. It's starting to slow everything. It's starting to like naturally try to bring everything down, your heart rate down, your brain down to like a slower working rate, so it can just eventually just go to sleep. So what happens is like there's a sweet window. That's the reason why like you hear a lot about like writers writing at like 2, 3 in the morning, because there's like loopiness feeling. And like, what is it? Was it Talk Radio? The show Talk Radio. All the writers, they wouldn't meet until 8 o'clock. They would eat dinner together. They would like drink a bunch. They would smoke a bunch of pot, and about like 3 in the morning is when they would start fucking writing. And the reason why behind that is like that they felt like they had this looseness about them, and like they weren't worried about like structure, and they weren't worried about like, oh, does this word work with this word? They were just throwing shit out because your inability just goes down. Your logical brain, which is what happens because your serotonin level goes up. And so your logical part of your brain starts going down because it's like, okay, well, there's no need for me to be working now because we're about to sleep. And so now what we need to do is we have to start unfragmenting everything that we thought, all these things that we saw, all these, because even like something you see, you might randomly just see a chair, and to you it's just a throwaway chair, but in your brain will keep that memory. And then like later on, that's the reason why then a month later, you'll have a dream and there's this random chair where you saw a month ago. The reason why that is because your brain just randomly fragmenting like, we really actually don't need that picture. Let's get that shit out of here. And then you'll just won't remember that shit anymore. It's crazy how our brain works, and we have no idea how it works too. But we just had these like theories. Well, I guess that's all science is. People want to think science is one giant sense of like realness and like always correct, but it's called practice. It's like the practice of science because it's always changing. It always changes. It's never the same. That's the thing. Like when people get pissed off about these scientists, like how did they fuck up on the on the vaccination, and then like they said that like we get vaccinated, and if you're vaccinated you're not gonna get sick. It's like, well, it's a fucking science, dude. It's a thing. We're trying something here. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, then we have to try something else. It's just how it is. But yeah, so like I'm doing this at a weird fucking time in the day where like my brain is all about logical right now. It's all about like lists and get things done off the list. And normally this would be the last thing I do, but I want to get this done and over with because I have to mow the yard. And I really had this like thought that if I mowed the yard, then if I then do the podcast after, I'm like, fuck this, I'm not gonna want to do it. But in retrospect, how we've been talking today, I should actually do that anyway. I should have probably fucking done that, because instead of taking 5 minutes for me to warm up and to get, reasonably, like, decent at talking, because, like, I haven't said a fucking word. The first word I said on this podcast was the first word I said all day. I haven't talked since when I started this 14 minutes ago. Like, that was the first time I talked. Oh, man. But, yeah, this is kind of fun doing it like this. It's just different. It's always fun. I should always be able to change it up, but like I need to work on using this little Zoom thing, because I'm going to be doing a lot more projects. Or I just bought, let's say like, I don't know, like $500 worth of like lighting equipment. So I'm getting 3 softbox kit, which is like, they're just going to be filler lights. So there's going to be more of a filler light here, more filler light here, and there's going to be more of a light up here. Sorry, I'm looking at the screen, so it's like kind of figuring out how it is. So then I got that, and then I got 2 smaller ones. Then I got these 2 smaller, I guess, I wouldn't say they're soft boxes, but they have the abilities that they have a soft box attachment. So if you don't know what a soft box is, you remember when you were in elementary school or high school and you're getting like your senior pictures taken, or you're getting your like your yearbook picture taken. That's a better way to describe it. How they had those, like, they're like umbrellas, and they would flash. Well, these are, think of like an umbrella, but there is a soft, like a hue thing, like a duvetine. There's like a duvetine that has Velcro on it, and that covers it, and that gives it like a softbox effect, because it softens the light. Because right now I don't use any of those things. I don't use any softboxes. I don't use any duvetines. I don't do anything to soften a light. So think about when you put a sheet over a lamp. See how like it's like you can still see the light through the lamp, because the waves, or the units of the waves of the light, are still strong enough to get through the fabric. But it incredibly dims it. It stops it down, and that's what you use in film term. You use like duvetines, which are different levels of thickness, because like there's like red, yellow, green, white, and like it's basically like a duvetine, like a sheet of duvetine, and then it has like around it is like a color with a metal stick coming out of it, almost like a kebab. It's like a kebab, and then you just, and then you like, okay, well, just give me, and you know that like a white is like a half step versus a red is a full 2 steps, something like that. And so I'm getting those. It has the like ability to, you can take those things off and put them back on. Just thought I'd try them, see how it works. I think that I got like, 6 or 7 lights, and then a couple sandbags, because I do need sandbags. But I almost kind of think that like using those lights, the second reason why I got those lights were because they're a lot easier lights to travel with. You can put barn doors on them. You just put a cover on them, and then you can like put them in a crate and ship them. And yeah, it's just much easier. So when I do like on location shooting, I can bring those, and it's basically a whole full lighting kit plus 2 filler lights. So like the 3 lights is a full like 3-point lighting system, which is what I use right now. So you use a light here. There's a main light here. There's a main light coming like at this angle, and there's lights coming straight. So it just fills the whole room. And there's I guess technically it would be fill light behind me because it's like hitting here and back, and then this light right here is getting the whole thing of me, and then you have your you have your master light for the whole thing. So you back, fill, master. And I have that, but then plus additional 2 more. I have no idea what I'm talking about because this podcast is fucking probably going off the rails. I got like 2 minutes left. I'm just like, woo, just get this done. You'll be done. It was so funny. Maybe I was just sweating because I'm like, dude, you're bombing hard, Juan. Like hard. But this is just like, I technically really didn't even have to do this. I'm doing this to, just to be, because there's a level of like, I'm like, I could just not do it and just move on with my day, upload it, get rid of that and be done with it and move on. But I'm like, no, because like it was only like 11 minutes. Like you're only gonna have good quality for like 11 minutes, and that's just not worth anything. But then I'm like, John, you've just talked for the last 20 minutes, and I don't think you've said a goddamn word. Nothing of any sort of like understanding of coherentness. My brain has become just writing. Not gonna lie to you. Which in turn, my brain has always should have been more like this. It's just now it's like, what the fuck? What's really cool though is like my vocabulary. I have definitely noticed in with like the short amount of time I've been doing more intense writing is that like, it's definitely gone up more because I'm always like Googling what's another word for this, what's another word for this, what's another word for this, and so then I'm seeing words that I end up not using, and I'm like, oh yeah, that is actually a good word. I should use that word more. But yeah. Anyway, I got about like 30 seconds left. I don't know if I'm going to be using this microphone anymore. I might get another better just microphone like this. Or next week, because I'm using auto levels. It's audio. It's the Zoom recorder is picking what level it wants to use from an audio level versus next week I'll probably just try it with just picking one level and just going from there. But yeah. I hope you enjoy this. I'll actually also add what I said when the bad audio to the end of this. So this podcast is going to probably be well over an hour long. So enjoy that. And then I will see you guys on the next episode. And I promise the audio will be better, worse. I don't know how this is actually even going to be. It just sounds really loud. I think it sounds loud in my head because I have the volume in my earphones really loud. All right. Bye.